All right, we got the floor painted on this trailer. And now I want to move on to putting 1/2-inch plywood on the walls. Before I do that though, and I track this up any worse than it already is, I'm gonna put some traction tape on this door. That way, if it gets slick from rain or something like that, nobody slips and falls. As I said in my first video, this is a new trailer I bought recently. The one I was using I couldn't stand up in, and it wasn't quite big enough for all the equipment I want to haul, especially 4x8 sheets of plywood. This is a series of videos I'm doing. I'm showing the upgrades I'm going to do this trailer before I even take it out to use it. All right, I'm going to be using this anti-slip tape I bought off of Amazon. Let's see if it's any good. So I think it has self-adhesive on it. So we just need to lay out where we're going to put them. These are 4 inches by 30 inches, if I remember right. So get my tape measure and see where we want to put them. All right, so this is roughly 6 feet, 73 inches to be exact. So if we put the front of them every foot, we're gonna have one here, 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 and here. So I'm just gonna mark them at 1 foot. I think that's probably the best option and the quickest. Okay, and if they're 30 inches wide, that's almost going to be as wide as this gate. So 30 inches wide, and this is 76 inches. It means we're about 16 inches extra. And if we want to divide that by 3, that'd be 5 inches off of each side. So we're just going to do that. Put a mark there. I have a straight edge on order, but I don't have it yet. So we'll just use a piece of E-track for now. All right, so there's our line, and we'll just mark straight across from where this is going to be. That way we don't mark our gate all up. Okay, now what I'm thinking is take this E-track, lay it across here on our marks. Now, should be able just to peel this off. Okay, and I see my mark on the end. Just line it up with my straight edge. Just like that. Okay, now we're just going to make sure they're pressed down really well. All right, now that that's done, we're going to start working on this next part. This is the trim they put on to cover up their seams for this 3/8 particle board. But obviously if there's a strut going right here where the screw is, if I put some plywood over top and I go to screw it in, it's going to pull in here and not pull in right there. So I'm going to put some strips of wood in between every area where there's a seam or where there's a truss, so that it's all flat when I'm done. I'm not sure if I'm going to do the front yet. I'm going to kind of figure that out as I go, but there's lots of areas. And before I even do that, I'm going to back one of these screws out and see what they're using, because I had a hard time figuring out what to get. It's kind of a weird application because you're going through wood into steel. Okay, so they just use simple self-drillers, but this is kind of unique. It's a very flat head. It's not an angled head, so it goes just below the surface, which you can't find these. So this is probably a specialty screw that they use. This is what I bought, thinking that would work. It says multi-material construction for wood, masonry, concrete, sheet metal, and plastic. So I'm thinking that this might work. We'll see. I may have to drill pilot holes for this, but this should sink below the surface. So I got a sheet of 3/8 plywood. They didn't have 3/8 OSB like it's already in the trailer. But what I'm thinking is using a straight edge and cutting them this way, because most of my, well, pretty much all of my trim will be shorter than 4 feet. So that way I can get a whole bunch of trim out of this one piece. And I might just use some E-track to cut this. These pieces will be 3 inches wide, because that's what the trim is in there, even though we won't be seeing it for a long time. And ideally, I would rather have the grain going this way, but it is just a spacer. So we're just gonna go with this. So I'm gonna cut these this direction. So I have to account for this extra width here. We're gonna go over 3 inches plus 1.5 inches. So we're gonna measure over 4.5 inches for our pieces. So we just should be able to line our E-track up there on those marks, clamp them down, and cut it off. Right on the money. It just so happens I recently bought a Swanson square, and my understanding is it makes measuring really easy. So we're just gonna put our pencil right in that divot. Well, that didn't work because I didn't keep it very straight. Yeah, so these Swanson squares have all these little divots at like the 1 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch. So I can just put my pencil in there and quickly measure 4.5 inches. Makes life a lot easier. And I just line up my E-track or straight edge if that's what you have. Clamp it down. Cut it off. All right, we're gonna see how far that takes us. I'll have to hook up my chop saw because I'll have to shorten some of those. Even the longest ones I'll have to shorten a little bit, but they will go right in between there. All right, let's get some basic measurements here to see if they are gonna be similar length. 43.5, 43.5. That's a little bigger there, so we're probably just gonna measure each one. Now, before I get too crazy, I want to really determine where these struts are on the side so that when I get ready to screw into them later, I have them marked. So I really want to make sure I know where these are at. So I got this little stud finder here. I'm going to see if that'll help me. It looks like they are in line with the top ones. Can't check that one. I'm just going to go ahead and mark, especially at the bottom, at least where they've screwed into them. And right here at the end, it looks like there might even be some metal right behind here. That's good. These are gonna be a pain though, because I can't see my screws. I might pop these off. Yeah, just to see, because I gotta make sure I'm in the right spot. And my plywood's gonna cover up some of this mark, so I'm gonna have it back far enough that I can see it. See, this here, they have the screws way off from each other, so I'm wondering what's going on. I don't know how wide those things are, but I wanna make sure I hit them. Okay, up front here, I can see the very tops of them on some places. So just marking the roof where they're at, right in the corner where they're at. Bring these out a little farther. Okay, one more thing I'm gonna do. I'm gonna loosen this metal up so I can bring it out, because I wanna go back all the way and hook onto this strut back here. And right now I can't get to it. Okay, I'm gonna have to remove all these screws as well to expose all that back there. I really don't wanna have to tear my trailer apart just to fix it up, but that's part of it. cannot figure out what size the Torx screw that is. That's very weird. These screw heads are some funky star pattern that's not Torx, because none of my Torx sizes will fit it, but I'm gonna try to use this square bit because it seems to be gripping that one. I don't know what kind of specialty bit it is, but that's a little frustrating. It's probably so people can't get into this, because I don't really want people in this part of their trailer. So once we get this metal off, we'll leave it off until we get the plywood on. Yeah, because all their wiring's back here and stuff. So there's a wider piece right here and a narrow piece right here. We're gonna try to screw into this right here. But we have to put a strip down here to hold the plywood out. And then we're gonna have to cut a hole for that vent. So we gotta get this side off yet. I don't even know what size of square bit this is, but it says square on the end of it. Seems to be working pretty good. So this side, the metal's stuck behind there. Oh boy, not much holding that there except for maybe some silicone. I might be able to slide it back far enough to get it out. I don't know. I don't really want to bend this metal all up. There we go. So when we put it back on, it's going to go over top of everything. So we're going to start right here and put a piece right there. So I'm just going to use a air stapler to put these on. Just lining it up with the back of that. And I'm using 1-inch staples. And these are just temporary because once the plywood's over top of it, it won't even matter. So got to cut that 28 1/4. $43 1/2. I'm just tacking the bottom for now so we can line the top up when we get those top ones in, so they kind of line up, although that one's way off center. Okay, so I got to cut around a light switch here, and we definitely don't want to cover that up. I think what we'll do is see if there's any extra wire and pull it through. So I didn't start my camera, but I was able to just take these screws out, and there's plenty of wire here, so I'm just going to let that hang there until we get all of our plywood on, and that way this will be on the outside. All right, for the front, we're just gonna put some partials in here instead of cutting the whole length, because we already cut them 4 foot, and that'll work just fine. It does help if you nail or staple off to the side, so that if the metal is technically in the middle where you're putting them, you don't want them to hit the metal and not go in, which I've had happen a couple times. We're not gonna cut this angle because you're not gonna see any of it. So we're just gonna cut our length 19 3/4, 19 3/4. $17 1/2. 17 3/4. All right, so we got all of our spacers put in place. Now I'm gonna start putting the 1/2-inch plywood up. And I think just while I'm getting everything measured out correctly, I'm just gonna staple it in place and then come back in and screw it on when it's all cut and measured up perfect. Well, not perfect, but as good as it can be. So I went with 1/2-inch plywood because it's lighter and I think it'll still be just fine. It's lighter and cheaper. Now we have some decisions to make. So those bars are not 8 feet apart. Well, maybe. But the ones at the back is off. So we can't go off the back. If we go right here, then we're kind of in the middle of no man's land. We have just smaller space at the front and the back, which is fine, not ideal. Let's see what the other side measures out to be. Yeah, that's not 8 foot. So if I go all the way to the back, we gotta think about this for a little bit. Hopefully I know where my steel bracket is behind here. This 8-foot piece only fits certain places, so I'm putting it up here and I'm just gonna cut the back piece. Trying to make things work out here. My screws seem to be working though, so that's a good thing. I think I'm just gonna try to just drive a screw without even drilling it, see if it works. That did not work. Let's try that again. I'm gonna try to put these screws every 6 inches. Well, these screws are working pretty good. So I'm using 2-inch screws and I'm going through 3/8, then 3/8, then 1/2 inch. And they seem to be working just right. Okay, so these metal gussets that are behind this OSB are not very wide. So we hit it with this 4x8 sheet, but we're not hitting it with this short sheet. So what I'm gonna do is just use some drywall screws to hold this flush so it's not causing any problems sticking out. But then we're gonna have screws in here and here. And when we put our E-track up, it's gonna run from the very back halfway through this 8-foot piece, and then we'll use another piece for the rest of it. So we're gonna have strength where we want it for this side. So we're just gonna get this screwed in here. Actually, I'm gonna make a mark here to make sure I know where my metal bracing is. I might be able to hit that. We'll have to see. Yeah, maybe I can catch that. Definitely have to angle it pretty good. Here we go. Worked out good. Now I just have to hit this back one. All right, I'm gonna call it a night. It's getting dark and getting late. Resume this later. All right, so got late on this last night, so we shut it down. Today, I'm gonna start by finishing this top half here, top third. So this actually measures over 28 inches, but I'm not worried about getting all the way to the top. I'm only gonna cut this 2 feet tall because we gotta get this whole thing out through the door, which isn't much more than 6 feet. Yeah, our opening is about 6'2". So I don't want this any taller than that anyway, because you'll see when I get it built, but I won't be able to tip it very easily. So it's gonna have to kind of come out just straight. So we're just gonna cut this 2. That'll also leave us 2 feet on this side so we can finish that side as well. Saving on lumber, hopefully. Now we gotta measure for this vent. We're gonna measure the center of the vent. All right, so we're gonna use our straight side to go against the other piece. And so we gotta go 10 3/8. We're actually gonna measure up first. 10 3/8 here. And it's a 4.5 inch vent, but we're gonna make sure it's plenty big. This is an old hole saw kit I got from my father-in-law. It's missing the 5 inch, which is what I wanted to make this, but we're gonna go with a 6 inch. It's okay. All right, so just tighten that up, and then I think we're ready to go. I would rather use a big hole saw than try to cut this out with a jigsaw. I think it'll look nicer in the long run. Wow, that's a nice sharp set though. I breezed right through. Let's see how it fits. We got the vent. Let's get a screw in here so it can't move around. Okay, so change of plans. I'm going to build the box that I'm going to use for wood. That way I can kind of get this whole area taken care of before we worry about the rest of it, because it's going to be a different situation over there. So I got our 1/2-inch plywood on the wall. Now I just got to figure out what my box is going to look like. Okay, I brought some 2x4s in here and was just kind of playing with size and whatnot, and I decided that I'm going to make this box 10 inches wide total. So that'll mean just outside to outside. That'll give me plenty of room for the amount of wood I'll need to haul. Probably way too much actually, but and then it'll be 10 inches wide, so I'm going to have 6 10-inchers that I'm going to need for this build so far, 6 8-footers and 4 6-footers, and you'll see what those are all for here shortly. I changed my mind. I'm going to make it 9 inches instead of 10 inches thick. We got 8-footers, obviously, that's what I bought. So I'm going to cut my 6-footers and then my 9-inchers. So we need 4 6-footers. Okay, so for my outside pieces, I'm going to use my 9-inchers and come in here perpendicular like this and go into the side here. So I'm going to notch these out 1.5 inches in, 3.5 inches up, so that I can connect all this together. I'm going to need to see my marks, so we're going to go on this side. We're going to measure 3.5 and 1.5 inches in. Once I get my depth set on my saw, I won't have to measure that dimension anymore. So here I'll set it up, make sure we're level, which we're not. Now I think we can control our depth with this little thumb screw here. That's really tight. Actually, I'm gonna mark the side of this so we can kind of eyeball it. So we can control how far the saw goes down by putting this thumb screw down. So right there I can control how far down it's gonna cut. So I'm hoping I can just kind of chop it out with this. Yeah, boy, that's the maximum that'll go down, and it just might be the right depth. Let's try it and see how it comes out. So I'm not able to get all the way back because the stop that I have set. So I'm not really sure that's gonna work because I have like it kind of rounds up in the back. I mean, it definitely gets the bulk of it out of there. Ah, wait, if I put a piece of wood behind it, this might work. So I just space it out. Oh, I gotta get a shorter board though. There we go. Now I should be able to get back. Maybe not, maybe I need a little bit more. Let's try that. I need a little bit thicker board. That's what we're looking for right there. Now I just flip end for end. Got to mark my mark, 3.5 here. My depth is already set, so now it just should be a matter of lining that mark up. One down, one to go. Actually, all these have to be done. What was I thinking? I got 3 more to do. All right, we're gonna use 1.5 inch lumber, so we have to move our Craig jig to close in that 1.5 inch hole setting. Well, we know we're in the right spot. And then this has to be adjusted to 1.5 inch as well. Take your little tool here, loosen that up. And then you want your 1.5 inch to show right through that hole. When it's there, tighten her up. Now, I think our manual here tells us screw length for 1.5 inch, 2.5 inch screws. I just wanted to get things laid out so I knew what I was doing here. So we'll just take each piece, take it over here, drill it, and take it right back. Then this just goes on like this. And this just clamps right in this area here. And just center it up, clamp it on. All right, this is the most important part of this. Well, besides making sure everything's somewhat square, and that is making sure that we have enough room for a 4x8 sheet of plywood in here. So let's put some screws in the end there so those don't move around all the time. 2.5 inches. So these take a square driver that comes with your Craig set. We want to make sure we get these square as we can and as flush with each other as we can. So I'm not on a very good surface, so I'm just going to make sure these are both down flat as they can be. Put one of this in before we get too far. Next one has to be right where our plywood's going to end. One half of it made. Okay, now I gotta cut my 9-inch pieces. I should need 6 of them. Okay, now we're gonna try to get these connected. So then this is gonna be the wall side. So we definitely want to drill some pilot holes here. We don't want to split this short piece of wood out. And I'm just gonna put one screw in just to hold this up for the time being. I'm sure this is making some of you crazy because you're like, he needs a table to put this thing together. This is so stupid. Everything's not gonna be square. You're probably right. Okay, so I'm just making sure that's even with the edge. And we're gonna do the same thing here. Okay, now I'm gonna put a bottom one in so we can square everything. Well guys, I didn't think that through very far. I should have cut these 8-footers down by a little bit so that my plywood overlapped onto the the ends there. So I'm gonna have to go back in and cut all 6 of these boards down 3 inches so that I overlap on the ends. I want my plywood to attach on the ends, and they're not going to. Those are the things that happen. Okay, rather than take this whole thing apart to cut these down on the chop saw, I'm going to just use my circular saw and cut 3 inches off the one end and then reattach. I'm gonna mark these 3 here. Whenever things are going really well, there's probably a reason why you're gonna mess something up. This will not be as perfect as it was, I'm sure, but. So there we got our lines drawn. Now, get our saw hooked up. This won't be as perfect, but it will work. It's just more work, because now I gotta drill these holes over again, reattach everything. Now I gotta flip it over. I'm just using this as a spacer. Now we have to take these all back apart. Make sure this is square. It's exactly square, which is amazing. I think I can get rid of this piece, move it up here, and I need it up here for the next layer. So we'll just save some weight and move this. Twisted a little bit. Now I can hook onto that and turn it, at least we hope. There we go. Now we're ready to put a shelf in here. 8 3/4. We're going to put a rail of easy track at the bottom and then at this height right here. So this is where it's going to get interesting. So let's see here. 56 inches the center, and these are about 5 inches wide. So the bottom of our easy track we're going to want at 53.5. Okay, now I've got to make sure our holes line up with our steel in the walls. On the mark, on the mark. At least it's on the wall. So I'm gonna put this up there like this and then see what we need to do with the track, make it work out. Okay, get our drillers. So let's see if we hit something here. Yep. How about down here? No metal here. Shoot. Let's see if we can get it at an angle. Actually, we can just put some extra holes and then we'll hit. There we go. Now we'll just make sure we hit all of our metal before we start putting in all the extra screws. These are the ones that hold the majority of the weight. We're into all the ribs. So now we're just gonna go and put screws into the wood. Now I'm getting me a work table so I don't have to keep reaching down like I always do. So we're not gonna put one in every hole probably, but definitely every other hole. There's a lot of holes. So just so you're interested, I am putting, the ones into the beams are 2-inch self-tappers, self-drillers. They're these right here. And then the ones that are just going into the wood are number 12 by 3/4. And we're just gonna get all this track put up. We're gonna cut some pieces just to space that out. Well, that works perfect. Okay, that one's already cut. Let's go get an air compressor going here. I just want to have something back here so it doesn't get pulled way in. Okay, well. Woo! Right there. Wood hauler. Wood storage, I should say. So then.
Make it right. No one knows.
Look at that.
What do you do?
Probably gonna use a little turnbuckle or something with a hook here. I'll just. See, this isn't long enough. Wait, maybe.
Professional.
Wow. That ain't even gonna move right there. Many options. Now you just slide your wood in there. So I just wanted to get this set in and see how it was looking. We're just not sure if we're gonna use straps. I mean, that ain't even gonna move. Just with one of those straps, but I would definitely wanna put something on the bottom so it doesn't slide out and let wood fall behind it. I think it's gonna work really well. And then I'm gonna use this to put other kinds of way to hang things, and not sure what I'm gonna do, if I'm gonna do French cleats or what, but we'll do something so we utilize that area. So that's what we got so far. Still have shelves to put up there, something to put over here, but we're making headway. Well guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Once again, I worked into the late hours of the day, and at least we got this wood storage piece in here. Just temporarily got it hooked up here with this strap. I'm gonna try to get some turnbuckles or something to hold that real tight up against the edge there, but I'm pretty happy with how stable it is just with one strap. I think it'll work really good. So yeah, this is the second video in the series here. If you want to see how this trailer turns out, think about subscribing to the channel and hit the notification bell. That way you get notified when another video comes out. And guys, till next time, good luck with all your projects.